Good morning, everybody, and welcome to my big backyard. It is spring, April 15th, and while I have previously moved some other things outside, yesterday I moved all of my other plants that were wintering over inside outdoors. The only plants I have inside now are the house plants. So, as you can tell by this beautiful backyard, it's time for a spring tour of what's going on. So I'm going to start out here and then come back to the indoors. So one of the plants I moved outside, I've got leaves coming out on the crepe myrtles, which never did drop last year's leaves. I cut back all of the Russian sage and now it's coming up in full force. That stuff spreads, by the way. If you have Russian sage, beware. It will put out roots and it will shoot up all over the place. Yesterday I put back together my green stalk tower. My green stalk now only has one row of strawberries. The bottom I just planted with basil seed yesterday. I'm not sure how that'll do down there as seeds, but what the hey. I'm going to do herbs and some flowers in the green stalk this year for the most part. The daffodils, as you can see here, are almost done. I do still have some paper whites blooming, and over here, as you can see, I still have some of these big yellow doubles blooming. They are gorgeous. They really show up from a distance. I like that. So as we look around, let's move to the front of this area first. Like I said, I've got there's a couple little tulips stuck there in the logs with some of the daffodils. Some of these daffodils didn't even bloom for me, but over the years I think they'll get better. These hellebores are still going strong. The flower has been there for a while. Look at this. I think that's seed pods forming in my hellebore. So they must have been pollinated. I just assume that's what that is. I really don't know a lot about it. And that, I think, is a slug. Oh joy. All right. So, and honeysuckle. I'll have to pull the honeysuckle out of the little columbines later. So, as you can obviously see, the redbud tree is gorgeous. And when I'm out here in the sunshine, this was teeming with bees. So I expect more bees to be out here later on. It's been covered in pollinators. Well, I have no idea why, but my GoPro tends to turn itself off whenever it wants to. So I have no idea where I left off in the last segment of the video. So I get to start here again. So as you can see, right in the front of my garden, I do have a couple daffodils that are still blooming. And as we walk across, all the irises are coming up nice and green. Some of the daffodils are dead. There's, I think those spikes coming up back there are actually crocosmia. There's some more there. I love the crocosmia. And I have buds coming in on the irises. A couple tiny little tulips under the tree with my daffodils. And it looks like I still have. So starting again down here with these hellebores, I didn't realize that hellebore flowers would last this long. It's pretty amazing. Looks like they're forming seed pods or something in the middle. So I'm hoping the hellebores spread here. We'll see. This soil just isn't conducive for things spreading unless they spread by roots underground. It's basically 8 inches of wood chips. Not the best. You can hear the bees around here, sort of, and you can see my gorgeous redbud tree. I've got 2 more of these, but really right now they're the highlight of this yard. I've got anemones here. This is the only anemone that survived out of 12 that I planted. I also planted 12 ranunculus and only one of those survived. A couple daffodils still going. Just step back here. The creeping phlox looks beautiful right here. Love the phlox. And my tandoori orange viburnum is beautiful. This thing is going to flower for me, but it's not going to ever produce any berries because I don't have the opposite viburnum that I need. I have to buy a cardinal candy and stick it somewhere at some point. Behind the shed here, I know it's an odd place to start looking, but I started planting things that would do well in shade. I've got some hostas here. In fact, there's hostas lined up all along this row. The white and green one never does real well, to be honest. It's been here the whole time I've had the house. I planted it when I moved in. But now I've got these beautiful blue bell type flowers here. Oh, look, a bee. Just what I wanted to see. Anyway, I've got these beautiful bluebell type flowers that spread everywhere eventually. And I also planted some bleeding heart. This bleeding heart, this is the first year for this, and it hasn't bled for me yet. But we will see. It may put up some flower stalks, or it may just produce green this year. Either way, I'm okay with it. Let me come around to the other side, and you can see the daffodils that have finished, and the irises that are really just beginning over here. It's gorgeous. You can see my 4 new iris plants, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I planted in the fall. They've all come up and survived. I also have, you can see the snapdragons that I had from last year. Obviously they're just green right now, but they survived the whole year last year, and they're here this year, so I'm expecting a nice show of flowers out of those. So my beautiful purple irises through here. So right now I just have the plain purple blooming. This one down here though is a really awesome purple and white color, and the new 4 are different colors as well. So, and then more daffodils, which are, like I said, almost done. So I've got a lot of good things here just growing. You can see pretty much everything that I put in has survived. You can see my hydrangea coming up, lobelia coming up, more irises, and for the first time this lilac is going to bloom for me. I just got this at Lowe's one year, or Home Depot, and it's taken it a while to decide to start blooming. The bee balm is back from last year. The hyssop didn't come back. I had hyssop, well, one of the hyssops did not come back, at least. But this is a new peony here that's coming up that came from it was freebie. I get a lot of free plants from swaps, things like that. All the lilies that I had stuffed along the fence at one time are coming up. And it looks like I have a canna coming up here. 2 cannas, 3 cannas. So the cannas that I planted back here that I got at a plant swap are coming up. And here is the one ranunculus. The funny thing about this is that when this was a bud, I think a deer came and ate half of this bloom, and I can't believe it's actually opened up the other half. But this one hopefully stays and I get a full flower out of that one. I find that amusing. Don't eat that, cat. The cat was not responsible for the eating. And here are my other 3 redbud trees. Believe it or not, I planted these 3 redbud trees from sticks. I mean, sticks as small as like a twig on the end of one of these branches now, and kind of they give away for free for Arbor Day or events like that. And in no time at all, they're this big. Redbud trees grow quickly and look beautiful. I recommend. So we go back around. Here's the meadow for the year. We talked about in a previous video how I retarped and reseeded the meadow, and you can see by the sheen of green across the meadow that the seeds that I planted are indeed coming up. I'd come out and water it, but it's gonna rain today, so it'll be fine on its own. But the daffodils are about dead in the meadow. There are some other things coming up. I know I have some Dutch iris and things planted in the meadow that will come up. And I have some seedlings in the house that I would like to plant out here. I'm just holding off until probably May. They're not in the house, they're outside, but I just want to wait until I'm sure that there's no frost before I do that, because you can see what happened to the banana plant. I planted this banana out here last week or the week before, I don't know. It didn't look like it was going to really freeze much, but it did get cold out here. Obviously this banana was bit by the frost. It's going to come back just fine, and we'll see what happens. But that's one reason not to plant out here anything that I've already grown from seed. And here's the sunshine finally coming in this morning. The other day I planted out a couple elderberries. These look pretty good. The frost didn't touch them, but the frost nipped my fig trees. This is a Chicago hardy fig. It was bit by the frost, but it's gonna be fine, pretty sure. And then there's 3 other figs here, Celeste and LSU, and I think the little one in the back is Olympian, but they all got bit by the frost, and the Olympian didn't have that many roots when I planted it. There's still a good chance that it'll come back. So I'm just gonna leave them alone, leave them in the ground, let them grow. Under my beautiful willow tree, you can see I do still have some ajuga. There's 3 ajuga plants that survived under here. And look at these little daffodils. They're so short, probably because of the amount of mulch. Who knows? That is a weird bird sound. I don't know if you can hear it on camera. Anyway, there it is, the little flower bed there. We'll come up to the vegetable garden. I'll do a whole tour, a whole talk about the vegetable garden at some point. It's gonna get its own little channel. But there it is so far for the year. And then we're back over here in front or behind my house. Here's the cactus garden and what it's looking like so far this year. It's beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and do a cactus garden video for cactus garden people. But for the rest of you, it's beautiful, it's healthy, it looks great. Come around the house. My clematis is climbing away. It's already reached the top there. I didn't cut it back last year, I just let it go, and it's blooming nicely. I gotta get in here and weed again. The weeds come up in these rocks like nobody's business. We've been pretty happy with the California poppies underneath this maple tree. I just think that's beautiful. And those poppies are huge. They are really big California poppies. They're gorgeous. Crepe myrtle's budding up. Like nothing too exciting here. I do have to get in and cut back the suckers because I'm trying to maintain just a few branches so that I have that good papery bark look and a good structure. I'm not a fan of weedy crepe myrtles. The sage is doing well. I think the sage is going to bloom soon. And that's fine. It's healthy for it to bloom. My mixed pot of random things that winter over well is in here. I've got a weird little yucca that came from the deserts of New Mexico. I've got lemon coral sedum. Echinacea's coming back. I've got some hens and chicks. And I planted a little teeny cactus baby. This is a baby Rita cactus down in there. It'll do fine there. This is my coral bark Japanese maple. Stunning in the winter, and I really like that chartreuse color that it has for leaves. The front porch contains all the plants that I brought from outside. They are also located on the back deck. I've got a lot more on the front porch this year because I figured that actually a lot of the plants that I have would benefit from only getting morning sun and just bright light the rest of the day, and that would actually be better for them than being on the back deck in the hot sun. So when you come down to the ground, if you remember, I cleaned this whole entire thing out, all of it, and it was just soil, and I was really careful trying to get out the lilies and things. Well, it's a fail. Lilies are voracious. These are those lilies that'll come up. They'll only be about this tall, and they're going to be bright orange. I'm not even sure that these will bloom this year, although ones that are this big might. I failed to get rid of them. All the digging up I did, and I couldn't get rid of them. The other thing that I can't really get rid of is chickweed. I'm terrible about that, but I'm hoping that the things that I planted on purpose, if I keep them cleared up, the bugleweed, which came up nicely in every spot where I planted it. There's some there, here. The bugleweed's in here. I'm hoping that it starts to take over this. There's an echinacea I planted coming back up. Back there is the Dutch iris coming up. That'll bloom later this summer. Some creeping phlox, which might take over an area. I'm hoping eventually I have enough other ground covers in here that the chickweed isn't all I get. So I've got these poppies here that have reseeded themselves. They should be just a standard kind of red poppy. My peony that's been here a while is doing fantastic. Obviously, my Japanese maple looks beautiful. My tulips look as washed out as ever. This is a cool tulip actually, I think, because it starts out yellow and they turn red. But they've been here for years and they don't do that well, but I like them, so I keep them. And I've got another new peony down here at this end. So essentially, that's it for my big backyard. I hope you enjoyed your tour of the basics of the big backyard. So, finished walking around the house to the other side.